Hi guys, this is Tank Mechanicus. Today we're going to talk about the American Tier 6 light tank T-37. When compared to the Tier 5 Chaffee, T-37 has a larger hull, but barely loses any mobility. It has about 25% DPM boost compared to the Chaffee. Although accuracy of the Top Gun is not great, you can try to improve it using complex equipment such as vertical stabilizer or improved aiming. Doing this can reduce your effectiveness at spotting, the primary role of a light tank. This can make spotting effectively more difficult. So forget about guns, also forget about armor, this is a light tank. The top engine mobility is enough for scouting. The 370 meter view range is relatively good for a Tier 6 light tank. The main question is what equipment you should use to improve the scouting abilities. The maximum view range, also known as the maximum spotting distance, is limited in the game. You cannot spot a vehicle farther away than 445 meters. The game engine performs no spotting checks past this boundary. By the way, do not confuse it with the maximum draw distance. If, for example, there is an enemy tank closer to you than 445 meters and you have a bigger view range value, the difference will decrease the enemy tank concealment value. For light tanks, it makes sense to have at least a view range of 445 meters. The bigger range beyond the value you have, the better you spot the enemy tanks because it decreases their concealment. For T-37 you cannot achieve the maximum view range with coated optics only, even if you install it to the scouting slot. Improved ventilation will help you to achieve the maximum view range, but it will still be too low to spot enemy light tanks or tank destroyers behind bushes. So I suggest that you to use binocular telescope instead in a regular slot. It will give you the maximum view range and some extra spotting value to unmask enemy tanks more effectively. Yes, binocular telescope doesn't work when you move, but this is not a problem. Just take a bush and spot. Then use low noise exhaust system for the scouting slot. It will give you plus 8% to your concealment. Not so effective as camouflage net, but works when you move, so you move between bushes more safely. You cannot use Commander's Vision system for Tier 6 tanks. So for the third slot, use improved ventilation to improve all tank features, turbocharger to get to your positions faster, or vertical stabilizer to improve your gun aiming. Personally, I prefer improved ventilation. Crew skills and perks are standard for a light tank. The concealment skill for the whole crew, 6th sense, situational awareness and recon for the commander. When you have enough experience, research snapshot for the gunner, smooth ride for the driver, and safe storage for the loader. The Brothers in Arms perk for the whole crew or a full female crew will improve the tank features overall. Let's test the tank in a battle. Overall, there are two different light tank tactics: active spotting and passive spotting. The active spotting relies on mobility and terrain cover to spot units on the move. Speed and mobility combined with your range are necessary to do this. Knowing the terrain is important to do this well. The passive spotting relies on cover and concealment to avoid being spotted. It also means you cannot shoot, so you don't reveal your position. If you choose the second option, you must plan your path to the enemy base in advance. Actually, the plan can include multiple paths, depending on which map you are on. For example, if your base is on the south of the map, there are about 5 positions where you can start. The bushes in the left top corners of G6 and D7 are the most important ones. Personally, I don't like G6 because any path towards the enemy base from that position is open. The enemy can spot you relatively easy and damage you from multiple areas like the enemy base itself or the ridge at D5. Also, a significant number of tanks go to the hill on this map. It means you'll have lack of targets in several seconds after a battle begins if your position is G6. So my choice is D7. I like this position because you can spot enemy tank destroyers alongside the lake at D4 and D5. You can see tanks on the small hill at D5. You can also see the enemy tanks going to the hill on the A line. Sometimes they take up to a couple of minutes being spotted as they pass here. Also, if you are spotted, you have more chances to survive compared with G6. Only enemy tanks on the hill are really dangerous for you. By the way, I have not mentioned the other start positions for spotting on this map. The third position is obviously at K3. Unfortunately, players rarely use that flank. So there might be nothing to spot. For example, see my T-30 tank destroyer review. The other two options are even less viable. There are bushes under the hill at B7 and C8. You can spot the whole northeast half of the map from there, excluding the hill itself. The enemy team will not expect you there. Unfortunately, you must have a good cover and speed, so probably this will work for a wheeled light tank only. There is an option to go to the hill, C7 and C8. You can spot the enemy tanks from the area around C5. If fast medium tanks support you from the hill, you can even stop the enemy heavy tanks and lock them in the A line, not reaching the hill. Mostly, top heavy tanks, some medium tanks and tank destroyers go to the hill on this map. Lower tiers typically go to the other flank or stay closer to the base. If you play a medium tank or a fast tank destroyer and do not consider to go to the hill, then if your team has a lack of light tanks or nobody goes to D7, you should consider going to this position. Don't risk a lot, especially if you play a tank destroyer. Plan your path to escape in advance. You don't have to spot. Your task is to not allow enemy light tanks to take this position. If an enemy light tank is here, then just stay on your side of the ridge and damage it every time when it tries to get to the bush. Eventually, if this position is not comfortable for you, because the enemy is on the hill, just leave the position. On the other hand, there is a chance that the enemy light tank will also leave the position or will be destroyed by your team. By the way, the enemy AMX 1357 is going towards F8. If he gets to the ridge there, he might spot me. Also, he doesn't allow the P-44 Panther to assist me, so I must help to destroy that AMX. I don't have a big choice.
Penetration.
Now I can return back to my position again. I think my team can deal with the VK without me. Our heavy tanks are already going down from the hill, so it's the time to move to the next position closer to the enemy base. The next position is at D5. There are some bushes where you can hide and spot the enemy base, and almost everything between the base and the hill. I didn't get to the bushes correctly and showed a part of my tank to the enemy. Do not repeat this. You should use the bushes as a cover and stand behind them. If you are spotted, just use a slope at D6 where you can hide, wait for several seconds to go dark and then try to get to the bushes again. You can even go to that position when the enemy tanks are still on the hill. You can damage those tanks from behind if they are visible for you, then hide down in the slope at D6 for cover.
Enemy armor is hit.
When you play a light tank, you will always have two questions. The first one is if it's time to move to the next position. You cannot even imagine how many battles I ruined when I answered the question incorrectly. Always check the map to know what enemy tanks were already spotted and where they are. If an enemy light tank or an ambush TD is not spotted, maybe it's too early to move. The second question is, do I shoot? Usually you will never know if it's safe to shoot, so mostly forget about shooting when you spot. Although you can do anything you like in the late stage of a battle if your team wins.
We've hit them, but we didn't penetrate their armor.
Meanwhile, I am moving to the next position, which is at D4.
Enemy armor is damaged.
Only 2 enemy tanks left, so I can relax now and get closer to them. About 6000 assisted damage, the Ace Tanker Mastery Badge, Scout and Patrol Duty medals. $128,000 credits profit with a tier 6 light tank. Thank you for watching, please like the video and subscribe.